And I think my biggest failure, obviously, is my marriage. From a personal point of view and from a professional point of view, I've had many movies go in the toilet. I've lost bodybuilding competitions and powerlifting competitions and all that stuff. So many times call me a self-made man. I know what you're talking about, but I always want to make clear at the same time, I'm not a self-made man. So I said, you know what you should do is, you should just pick a goal that you can chase. You know, I promised the people that they're number one, but I also promised my family. I promised my wife when we had the first child that they're gonna be number one. So that's the dilemma. Now you're in a dilemma.
I think what's really interesting is sometimes we feel helpless because of where we're born, where we're from, our parenting structure, our surroundings. Some people struggle to have a vision because they say, well, how can I have a vision? Look where I am. And then some other people, they can't have a vision because when they see someone like Reg Park or Mr. Austria in your example, what they see is, oh, envy. I wish I had that, like, oh, why does he have that? Or maybe, I should have that. So I think we live in these two worlds where we either feel helpless or sometimes we feel envious and egotistical about visions. How did you allow yourself, or how did you develop that ability that even though around you, there wasn't that much success, there was more stress, but you saw Mr. Austria and were able to do that? Have you ever figured out what that was compared to everyone else you grew up around?
I just can tell you I was very unhappy.
Yeah.
I was unhappy with the reality of what was around me. You know, the tough parents and the lack of food, and others had steaks. We didn't have the money for that. As a matter of fact, we never ate meat during the week. Now, today they would say, oh, this is really good because you were vegan as a kid, but it was more because of a lack of money. So we didn't have anything. So everywhere I looked, so I think to me, the only way really was, in order to be happy, is to create my own world and to visualize. You know, that's why people sometimes read a lot, because they want to escape into another story, or the day they watch movies to go and to see to escape into another story and all this stuff. For me, that wasn't available. You know, the first movie I ever saw was when I was like 9 or 10 years old. So it was not the common thing in the village where I grew up to go to movies. And I remember there was this collapsible kind of a seat. I just fell right down on a floor because I had never even heard of a collapsible seat, that you have to fold it down. Yeah. So I folded it down, then waited a little bit, and then of course it went back up again, and I went right down on to the floor. So because of that world, that negative world, I had to kind of create my own world. So I was just always daydreaming of wonderful things. So I developed that art, and it put a smile on my face. Yeah. So clearly when I then saw Mr. Austria or Mr. Universe, and I saw this guys and saw photographs of it, and read about it in the magazines, I created my vision. And I saw in that vision myself being up on that stage. And I saw myself, you know, people screaming around me and screaming, Arnold, Arnold, Arnold. And all this crazy stuff. It was all insane, crazy stuff. Stuff that I never shared in those days with anybody, because they would have put me in a mental institution, right? So I just remember that I was sitting in a classroom in school. I was like 13 years old, 14 years old. The teacher would be where you are now, in front of me, teaching. And I would just slowly look off to the side, out the window. And I saw the green trees. And then all of a sudden I started seeing things. And I had a smile. It just was wonderful stuff that I saw. And all of a sudden I had a chalk landed on my forehead. So the teacher threw a chalk at me, kind of saying, hey, I'm here. I'm getting paid to teach you, to teach this class of 30. Why are you looking out the window? Now, I couldn't even articulate that what you're teaching here, doesn't really blow up my skirt. It's like, it's not like kind of something that I'm interested in. What I'm interested in is what I just saw when I looked out there and I saw myself on that stage in London at the Mr. Universe contest, and it's things like that. So I think that with me, visualizing became a normal thing, and I never really knew that I had really a very special ability to visualize and to connect the dots, to say to myself, well, if I can see it, then it must be a reality. And I can make it a reality. So for me, the vision became a reality. So it was only then a matter of following through with the work to get there. And this is why in the book, one of the things I talk about is work your ass off. Because every single time when I had a vision about anything, I had to work my ass off. But it was pleasure. See, that is the great thing. When you go to work and you know exactly why you're working, then it becomes fun, a challenge. It's entertaining sometimes. And when you read that 78% of the American people hate their jobs, now think about that. I mean, that must be so depressing that you go, let's say you're working in some car plant and you do kind of the same work, putting a window into a car over and over, 50 times a day, every day, all year long for 30 years. I mean, it's tough. And so this is why it's so important that we really have a clear vision so that you know where to go, and that wherever it is, if it is to become a great auto mechanic, or if it is to become a great teacher or politician or a high-tech engineer, whatever it is, but have a vision, and then you go after that and you shoot for that, because now every step of the way is going to be great. When you pick a doctor, let's say, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a surgeon. A kid says to himself at the age of 15, well, from that point on, he knows all the classes he has to take already in high school. And then when he goes to college, he knows which university to go, what kind of classes he has to take, and then how long will it take him, and all of this stuff. So there is a reason for going to school rather than, oh, my parents told me that I have to go to college. And you just go to fulfill this obligation, but there's no goal. That's what happens to a majority of kids today. They don't have the goal. And that's why they end up being one of the 78% that are unhappy with their jobs, and they wish they could change jobs, but then it's too late, because now you've created a family and you have to pay for your rent for the apartment, and you have to put food on the table, you have to provide money for the kids and for your wife and for the family and all this stuff. So it's really tough. So that's why so many people are really always looking for an answer or searching for an answer. How can I improve my life? How can I make it a little bit better and all this stuff? And this is why I did the book.
What was the greatest sacrifice you ever made in your life, do you think? And what was the reward that you gained from it? What was the biggest sacrifice?
That is really the question. Is it really a sacrifice?
Because you love it.
Exactly. To me, it's also a real question is the word discipline. Because I tell you, I felt many times that I'm not a disciplined person. But people always insist and say, oh, it must take so much discipline every day to get up. And every day you were in the gym at 7 a.m. and you worked at the 9:30 in the morning. And then you went to college after that. And then you went this and this, and you worked in construction. I was like looking forward to getting up in the morning and looking forward driving to the gym and working out 2.5 hours and then going down to the beach and taking a run in the deep sand and getting some cardio work done and all this stuff. I was looking forward to it. It was not like, oh my God, I have to do another workout. Yes, you do that when, for instance, sometimes people go to the gym and the doctor says, you should go to the gym and you should work out because otherwise, I see some problems coming up, high cholesterol and body fat and this and that, and you're going to go and wipe out, 10 years younger than you want to. If there's ever the right time to wipe out. But I mean, in any case, so that person you can see in the gym is there, and they do their reps and they do their sets, and they're not really into it. You can see there's no life in their eyes. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like they grab the weight and they just do their sets and they get the pump and they feel good and they put the weights down and get the next heavier weight and they do the set. And so that's really fun. But that person is kind of like a vegetable in a way. They just cruise around in the gym. They sit on the life cycle and they just pedal away. And when you say to them, so why do you work out? They have no answer. Then eventually they say, well, to be honest with you, the doctor told me that I should get in shape. That's better for my health. To bring my blood pressure down and my cholesterol down and my body fat down and all this. So they're not really, so I say to them always, I said, you know what you should do is you should just pick a goal that you can chase. They would say, like, what? I said, well, how much do you weigh? I'm weighing 190 pounds and I want to lower my body fat, body weight. I said, well, why don't you pick a goal like you want to go down to 170? And it is now March, and by August, when you go to the beach, you're going to have a slimmer waist, less body fat, and you look leaner, and you can be proud of your body. I said, pick that goal. Oh, that's a good idea. I said, write it down, and then write down the sets you have to do to get you there, and the amount of reps you have to do, and the amount of life cycle that you have to run, and regular bicycling, and running that you have to do. Write all of this down, and then you mark it off. Every day you mark it off. That's what I did. To me, there was really that feedback that I see, a line being crossed. That means one more set was done. It was a satisfying kind of a thing. The line was crossed off. The next line was crossed off. And so I tell people that, and then they say, oh my God, this is, yeah, I'm going to do that. That is such a great idea. Then they come back to me like a few months later, and they say, this worked.
Oh, good.
It was unbelievable. It worked. It was fantastic. And it really gave me a purpose. You see, so that's what why it's so important to have a purpose when you do things, to have a clear vision when you do things, because then you don't have to look at it kind of like, I have to be really disciplined to do that, or I have to make certain sacrifices to do that, because then it just drags you into that direction and you just do the work. You know, so that's what I think is always that. But clearly there were sacrifices. Like, let me just give you one example.
Yeah, please.
What do you think it's like when you go and you run for governor and you promise the people that you are going to be my number one priority? Now you win. Now you have to do the work. But now you come home and your kids are crying on the dinner table when you come home. And Daddy, you didn't come to my recital on Monday. Daddy, you didn't come to my football practice on Tuesday. Daddy, you promised me that you come into the school and you take me to school. You didn't this week. So that is devastating when the kids are crying and complaining, and you say to yourself, you know, I promised the people that they're number one, but I also promised my family. I promised my wife when we had the first child that they're going to be number one. So that's a dilemma. Now you're in a dilemma, and now you have to make certain sacrifices. And I had to make certain sacrifices when it comes to spending time with my family, where my wife had to pick up the slacks, and she had to do the extra work. So there were sacrifices made that were painful sometimes. When you see your kids crying, that's painful. And then you know it's your fault. But that's the situation you're in. And you put yourself in this situation. You had a choice to run for governor or not to run for governor, right? If I would have continued with my movie business, those kids were in heaven because they were in a movie. In my makeup trailer, they were watching me getting made up as the Terminator or for any of those kind of movies. They were in my motorhome and they were doing their homework in the afternoon there. They brought their friends with them. So that was fun. Now all of a sudden they go up to Sacramento and everyone is running around with a suit and with a tie. And they come to me and says, Dad, what is this? What did you do? Why are you having this job? Now they were like 11, 12 years old. And they said, why do you have this job now? I said, everyone has a suit and a tie, and everyone looks really serious, and they all attack you. They say bad things about you. I said, well, this is the way it's in politics. I said, as soon as you run, first you have like a 80% popularity, and then as soon as you run, your popularity goes down to 50% because 50% of the other side, the other party.
Yeah.
So you run as a Republican, so it's 50% of the Democrats, they hate you, or they don't like you. And then the Republicans like you, but they don't even like you because they say, yeah, he's too socially liberal, whatever. so my campaign manager always said, he says, Arnold, 20% of the people hate their mother, so don't worry about someone hating you. It's just the way it is in politics, So anyway, so you have to make sacrifices like that. Imagine a sacrifice you have to take when you come to this country. I mean, you know what it's like. You leave everything behind. My friends, my parents, my relatives, everything that was around me that was kind of like a sure thing. I had a job after the military that I could go to continue on the job that I did as a salesman. I had all of this and I left all this for uncertainty because there was no certainty coming to America. There was Joe Weider that said, I'm going to help you. I find your apartment. I find your car. Yes, there were some people that helped a lot. He's the one that gave me the airline ticket to come to America and all this stuff. Joe Weider is the publisher of the muscle magazines. He has passed away in the meantime, but I mean, he was like the guru of bodybuilding. He created bodybuilding. The federation was created by his brother, Ben Weider, and Joe had the endless amount of magazines and distribution company for weight equipment, for food supplements and all that. So he brought me here, so there was some help like this. But I mean, I walked away from all of this comfort to come to America. So yet there were major, major sacrifices like that. But I really never looked at it in that way because I just say to myself, I want to go to America. I want to go and be there and work my way up to become the greatest bodybuilder of all times. And that's, we are talking about one of the other rules.
Yes.
Is in my book, which is that to shoot for big goals.
Yeah, never think small.
Is just as much energy or as little energy as shooting for a little goal. It's just as much hassle when you have a little goal. Like say, if I would say, I want to be Mr. Austria. Well, that's as much working out than working out for Mr. Europe or Mr. Universe. So, I mean, you might as well just continue on and just say, okay, all I have to do now, the difference really is that you have to become a real professional. You have to know how to pose. You have to have the right tan. You have to take the right food supplements. You have to eat the right food. You have to really fine tune. You have to get the definition. It's not just the size of the body. So the higher up you go, the more complicated it gets to win. And but I say to myself, to me, to shoot for the goal of being a world champion, it's just as easy as shooting for a goal of being Mr. Austria, being the Austrian champion. So I just went all out. And not only to win the world championships in bodybuilding, but to go beyond Reg Park, who won at that point 3 Mr. Universe titles, to go beyond that and to say, I want to actually become the greatest bodybuilder of all time. All times. That was my goal. And so that's why I had to come to America where there is Muscle Beach, where there's Gold's Gym, where all the champions work out together, where there's Joe Weider that can be helpful and publish you and put you on the cover of his magazines, and all of this to do the promotion, the campaign, the training, the marketing of bodybuilding and all that. So to me, this was really the only way to go is to come to Los Angeles. And on top of it, Los Angeles is known for Hollywood. And this is my next career. So I always say to myself, the word Reg Park, I saw him in Hercules movies. So can you believe that this guy won Mr. Universe 3 times, and then he was discovered in Rome, in Cinecittà. And they saw him there and they said, oh my God, you are Hercules.
Hercules, yeah.
We're going to send you to acting classes, into acting school, and you're going to play Hercules. And then Steve Reeves did the same thing, who was another Mr. Universe from 1950. Yeah, Steve Reeves from 1950, Reg Park 1951. So both of them became Hercules. Then there was many other bodybuilders that did Hercules movies or those gladiator movies and muscle movies and stuff like that in the 60s that became very famous. But I mean, so I said to myself, if Reg Park could get into movies, maybe when I go to America, and I become the world's greatest bodybuilder, then they would ask me to go into movies. And so was the idea. So to me, it was natural. Oh, I said to myself, there's Hollywood in Los Angeles, there's Muscle Beach in Los Angeles, there's Coach Jim in Los Angeles, there's Shawita here. This is perfect. I have to go there. That was the reason why I went here.
Did you ever have a plan B?
I never believed in plan B because I felt kind of like one of the rules we have in my book is never listen to the naysayers.
Yeah.
To me, I always felt kind of like every single dream of mine, and of course, I have to say they were outrageous dreams. So people said, this is stupid.
Yeah.
What is the matter with you? That would never happen. I mean, your dream is to go to America. What do you think, they're waiting for you over there? I mean, there's plenty of people over there. They have over 300 million in population. They don't need any more. And so that was the kind of saying, you would never make it to America, and they don't need you. So no, impossible. When I said I want to be a world champion in bodybuilding, that was impossible. When I said I want to get into movies, that was impossible. So it was always impossible. So I felt that we can go and defend ourselves from that and just not listen to the naysayers. But if I start having a plan B, then all of a sudden I'm becoming, in a way, a naysayer to myself.
Wow, yeah, true.
So because that means now that I'm saying, well, maybe this isn't working out. And if it's not working out, we should have a plan B. So to me, this is the most dangerous of all of the naysayers, is me saying no, and it's impossible maybe to myself. So therefore, I felt the best way of handling that is not to have a safety net and not to have a plan B. That I'm at risk, and therefore I have to be at all times on the edge and a 10, so I don't fall where I would need a safety net.
Yeah.
This is the way I had dealt with that issue. Never have a plan B. Always go all out with my plan and really put 100% of effort into it in order to really achieve it. And I just always believed in my goals. I mean, I remember when I ran for governor, and people said, "You're crazy." I mean, this great Davis is going to take you out, and then if he doesn't, Bustamante is the lieutenant governor. These are all seasoned politicians. You don't know anything about politics and blah, blah, blah. Why don't you run first for mayor, and why don't you do this? No. I was very clear with my vision. I could see myself as the governor because I felt that the people in California were very upset at the regular politicians. I mean, they were always talking about what they know and how smart they are and how they're going to fix things. In the meantime, we had a $30 billion deficit. In the meantime, we had blackouts. In the meantime, they were handing out driver's license to illegal immigrants, or what they call undocumented immigrants. And everything that the people were against and the people didn't like, the Indian gaming tribes were gambling and having gambling casinos, but not paying taxes. So they were mad about that. So I would just tell people, if I become governor, I would change all that. And the workers' compensation costs for businesses in California, I would cut that in half. That's why so many businesses left California, because of the cost of doing business. So I said, I would cut that in half. And so this is exactly, people bought in because I was talking believable. I mean, I could put my hand in the fire for the people to do the things that I promised. Those things will be done. And I said I would do most of those things before breakfast the first day when I'm in office. So that always sounded good. So in any case, but the people bought in. And I remember that when President Bush and those guys called me from the White House, and they said, "You want the president to come out to campaign for you?" I said, No. I said, because then it becomes kind of a political thing, but the Republicans are helping each other. And then Gray Davis is going to have out Bill Clinton and Al Gore and John Kerry and all of those guys. And that's exactly what happened. He had all those people come out, campaign for him, and I told all of my guys, no, don't come out. Because I wanted to be the David and not the Goliath. I want to be the underdog and kind of say, look, this is just between me and the voters. So that was my vision. Not a political strategy vision, but I mean, that was my vision. I said, I have to be the person that is by himself, that is kind of crawling up there, and that is communicating with the voters. I don't need someone to speak for me or anything like that. Yes, you have your and communications director and all this stuff, but I didn't need to have President Bush come out and speak for me. I didn't have to have the vice president come out to speak for me or anything like this. I wanted this to be between me and the thing, and it worked. People figured it out, that I'm out there, that I'm promising them, and they bought into it, and they won. And so this is why it is so important that you have really a 100% belief and not having to go and say, my plan B, if this doesn't work, is I'm going to go back to movies. Well, that will unfold anyway. But let's first go all out and not have a plan B. This is the thing. And so I've never had a plan B.
Yeah, no, it's really, really great clarity again of just determination that there's no other options. And I like what you said, or what really connected with me at least, is this idea of how you can become your own naysayer.
Right.
That having a plan B is you talking yourself out of why you should go all in.
Or you're already putting it on kind of shaky grounds.
Yes.
The goal.
Yeah, you're already setting yourself up.
You already say, well, wait a minute. If you say if, that means there's a possibility in your mind this could fail, and that is a dangerous road to go.
Yeah.
Give something back to the community, because we are not self-made people. And I talk about this at great length in the book, as people so many times call me a self-made man. I know what you're talking about, but I always want to make clear at the same time, I'm not a self-made man. I was created by my mother and my father. I was created by my teachers, by my coaches, by my bodybuilding champions, that they were my idols. And Joe Weider, that brought me to America, Eric Morris, who was my acting coach, Chuck Nicholson, that recommended this acting coach. So all of these people had a tremendous amount. My wife did help me in every step of the way, with the kids. My kids were really helpful in my career. So I'm a product of all of that. And so I think it's important that when we recognize that we have gotten the help, that we therefore give help back. So that's why you have to ask yourself the question, okay, now if everyone helped me to be where I am, how can I not go out and help? Whom? Who can I help? What can I help them with? And I talk about it in a book that my father-in-law, Sergeant Shriver, had this great line at the university speech at Yale, where he said, don't look always in a mirror. Don't look at yourself. Destroy that mirror. You will be able to look beyond that mirror, and then you will see the millions of people that need your help. And so this is what it's all about, is to not just look at yourself or be self-consumed. Yes, you can be, but don't forget ever that there's a lot of people out there that need your help. And even though when people say, well, what can I do? I'm a nobody. I don't have any money. That's bogus. It's an excuse right off the top that I don't want to do anything. Because when you see Hawaii burning down to the ground, there's a lot of things that everyone can do. But just taking some food and bringing it to those poor folks, bringing some clothing, going out and going to some fundraising and bring a few dollars to them. Whatever it is, you can do something. Or to go into some inner city school and to help with an after-school program and to help kids learn how to read, especially since, in America now, we have so many students where English is a second language, to help them to learn English and all this stuff. So there's endless amount of things. I just always felt that I have to be all out. I remember when Rudy Giuliani called me, when he was mayor of New York, he said, oh my God, our buildings came down and we are creating a Twin Tower fund. Can you send $1 million? I said, yeah, you got it tomorrow. In 2 seconds, I didn't even think about it, So that's what you do when we needed masks when COVID broke out. And in Los Angeles, the hospitals didn't have any masks. So I immediately put in $1 million towards a fund that we put together to raise $8 million and then to get masks from all over the world, and especially from Asian countries. And so we can supply them with masks and gowns and with gloves and with ventilators and stuff like that. There was a company called Flexport that was within days got us the masks, even though the government said there are no masks around, we can't get any masks. So, these are things like that, or it doesn't matter if it's an earthquake or if this or that, you go out and you reach out, and that's why I'm involved in after-school programs. That's why I was involved in Special Olympics and being a trainer and a coach for Special Olympians to help them with winning medals and becoming champions and all this stuff. So that's what life is all about, to receive and to give.
We end every episode with a final 5. So these are a fast 5 where you have to answer each question in 1 word or 1 sentence maximum. So these are your final 5. The first question is, what is the best advice you've ever heard or received?
Believe in yourself.
Second question, what is the worst advice you've ever heard or received?
It can't be done.
Good answers. Question number 3, you've mastered so many things in your life. What are you currently trying to master?
Bring all of my talents together into one. The show business, fitness, and politics all into one, and make that be my new kind of vision and drive to help the world.
Wow. Okay, I'm going to scrap the final. What does that look like? That's fascinating. What does that look like right now in your mind as you develop it? You can use more than 1 sentence.
I want to be out there and help with environmental issues because I learned about that during my governorship. I want to be out there and help with healthcare issues, with aging issues, with fitness issues, with entertaining issues, and because it's important to entertain people. So all of those kind of things. So I have the Schwarzenegger Institute, where we deal with a lot of those various different issues and policies to make it a better world. And I have my environmental conference in Vienna every year where the world comes together. 80, 90 countries come together, and we talk about the environment and how to make this a fossil fuel-free world and reduce pollution so we don't have 7 million people die every year because of pollution.
Beautiful. I can't wait to see the impact you have in that space. Question number 4 has 2 parts to it. What is your biggest personal success and what is your biggest personal failure?
Well, I think that my biggest personal success is to be able to do the things that I wanted to do, that I visualize them and turn them into reality. And I think my biggest failure, obviously, is my marriage thing, that from a personal point of view and from a professional point of view. I've had many movies go in the toilet. I've lost bodybuilding competitions and powerlifting competitions and all that stuff. So I had plenty of failures. It's always important to bring that up, because people should know that you never will be able to go through life without failures. Failures make us learn. Failures make you stronger. Pain makes you stronger. So I think all of that is good. Yeah,
let's address both of those, because it's so true. Like on the outside, like you said, people can say, so privileged, you met the presidents, you did this, you did that, you've, all the wins. When I'm looking around this room, like everything's iconic, nothing's unrecognizable across the whole world. It's all recognizable. But did you ever feel the pressure when things started to go well of like, God, the next movie's got to be bigger and the next movie's got to be bigger? Did you feel that? Or did you just you were just loving it so much that you just kept building, and if it went wrong, that it didn't hurt you that much?
I never really felt that much pressure, probably about anything, to be honest with you, because I knew what I wanted, and I never really fell for this thing of what did the people expect me to do. So I create my vision, and when everyone says it's impossible, I go after it with vengeance. It's like I go all out, 100%, and it gives me joy. And what is great about it is that every time that you accomplish something really big, you see and become aware of other things that are new challenges that you didn't even think about.
Yes.
I mean, did I ever think about that I would fight for the environment? No. But because of the governorship, this is like the thing I talk about in the book about Hillary that climbs Mount Everest, and he's up there, and all of a sudden he sees another peak to be climbed, right? And he says, "That's the next one." So there's the same thing. I go and win the governorship. I go in there. I start working on the governorship and all the different policies, and I'm meeting all these scientists and experts, and they talk about how many people die here because of pollution, and we can do something about it. And I dive into that. It's a new peak. Oh my God, no one has really explored that. Forget the 19% of renewables. We have to have 50% renewables. Forget about reducing greenhouse gases by 5%. We have to reduce it by 25%, and we have to do it by 2020. And so you set big goals. So this is the new peak that you're climbing, and you go all out for that. Then when you get there, then you see another peak beyond that. So this is what is fun, and this makes my life rich. That is always something new and different. And I tell you that I also learn when I, for instance, listen to you, because you come from a totally different world, right? So you have a different spin on things. So that when I listen to this, I say, oh, that's an interesting way of looking at it. And so I think we have to learn from one another. And so I think that you and we have a lot in common anyway, because otherwise you wouldn't be sitting here.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? I mean, to think about it, it's not just that I want to be having one of the most popular podcasts, but you have to be a curious son of a bitch to go and to be really good in what you do.
Yeah.
And this is what I noticed about your podcast. You're really curious, a natural curiosity.
Thank you.
And I think that is... but you have to have it. You have to have curiosity. It shows in your eyes. It shows in everything when you ask the question and all this. It's like when you see journalists, which I hate. They have like a piece of paper and they say, "Okay, very interesting." He says, "Now let me ask you another question. You one time said this is, and then how do you feel that they read it off the paper, and then when you answer, they don't even look at you in the eyes." They look at the paper for the next question, right? So I didn't detect any of that from you. I mean, every question came without looking at anything because you're curious. And so I think I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you, Arnold.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that. And it means a lot coming from you. And I am curious because I grew up as a fan who didn't. So that's one thing.
Yeah.
But I think I'm even more curious because you chose to write a book about being useful and life lessons. And I think that world is what I gravitate towards, because I think learning from the greats is all we have. And I think when we ignore to learn from the greats, that's when we have to make our own mistakes for no reason. We can avoid so many. So
that's right, yeah.
No, I am very curious about you. And I think you're also a fantastic storyteller, so that helps.
Well, thank you.
You get into so much detail and so many examples and everything. So it's brilliant.
Well, thank you. But I tell you, it was really fun doing this book, because I really had to kind of drill down and think about a lot of the things that comes natural for me.
Yeah.
To tell stories about, because each one of the rules, you want to be able, even the sub-rules and the sub-rules, you want to be able to tie it to a story so that people can relate to. Like I was talking about infrastructure. You can talk to people about infrastructure all you want. They can relate to it. But as soon as you tie it to getting stuck in traffic, making it to the recital in the school, and you come late an hour because of the traffic and all this, then they can relate to that. And the same is with any of the rules. I kind of had fun doing it. It was sometimes frustrating because you want to do 10 rules, and the publisher then says, no, you can only do 7, because this book should only have 268 pages rather than 350 pages, and all of this crazy stuff you go through. But it was a really, really great process, and never in my wildest dreams did I ever think that I would occupy this space at all. And it really happened just totally coincidentally, where more and more people, when you finish with the governorship, I was asked to do public speaking engagements, like ex-presidents and stuff like that. And so I'm traveling around. I think one time someone said, can you pump up our crowd? We have like 1,000, real estate people. We want you to just pump them up. So you do a little bit of success story.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they took off like wildfire. every one of the public speaking engagements they've had since then, they want to go and have me talk about success and the rules to success and all of that stuff. So it's like something I didn't even think about because I always was a motivator. You know, if it's the Special Olympics or for after-school programs, or it was just my buddies around in the gym that became my training partners because I always have this kind of energy, right?
Yeah.
Come on, let's do a set. You can do another set. Well, wait a minute, you're stopping with 10 reps. Give me 5 more reps. Let it pain. Let it give pain. You know, and you just pump. So I have this energy. So I never thought that this would be used then for seminars and eventually for a book like this. It's like crazy.
No, it's
where
fantastic.
Life takes you.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's beautiful to see it through your eyes and through your lens, and for us all to dream as well. And I have one final question for you. And actually, before I ask it, when you said we have a lot in common, there's so many different parallels that I'll tell you later, because when I was listening to you, I have a very different life, but so many similar lessons I've picked up along the way. And I think as humans, that's what brings us together. We may not have the same life story.
Right.
We don't grow up in the same places. We don't have the same parents, but you pick up the same messages from the world and the same lessons from the world.
Right.
So the fifth and final question I want to ask you is, if you could create one law that everyone in the world had to follow, what would it be?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Maybe to get off fossil fuels. That we have to use alternative energy. If it is nuclear, with producing energy itself, if it is for cars, electric or hydrogen, I just feel like if we have 7 million people die because of pollution, I think by having a law like that and eventually make it stick, I think that we could save those lives. And this is like unlike more than any of the wars that they've fought and any of the other disasters or anything like this. It's like so many people die because of pollution. So I mean, that's
huge.
One thing. Yeah. So I mean, you know, then probably tomorrow morning I'll call you and say, I have another law.
Great. That's a great answer.
Yeah.
We've never had that one though.
Yeah.
We've never had that answer. So it's a brilliant answer. But you've been doing so much work I feel like you've been doing so much work in the plant-based space, you know, with the documentaries on game changers, like climate change now you're talking about. Like, it seems like this has been like an immersion for you.
Well, you know, we know it's a crazy, here's another crazy one.
Yeah, go on.
I mean, it's all, my life is so insane.
I believe it.
No, but I mean, it's like, I'm working with this guy, Jim Cameron. I do Terminator 1. We become friends. We ride the motorcycle together. We hang out together. And then he does, you know, Terminator 2, and he does other movies, and the Titanic, and Avatar and all this.
Yeah.
But he is an environmentalist. But when we did Terminator, I never knew that. And he never talked about it. So then I become governor. And now he goes and he says to me, he says, Arnold, I want to make you aware of that the power companies are still resisting the reverse metering. I said, reverse metering? What the hell are you talking about? He says, well, it's the thing, you know, when you produce energy from solar and you produce too much, you want to put it back on the grid. That's reverse metering. And you get credit for it.
Wow.
So I walk away and I say to myself, how does Jim Cameron know about reverse metering and about that subject? You know, of course, it's very clear because he's a genius, right? Yeah. And he just is, with technology and stuff like that, he's unbeatable.
Yeah.
So, but sure enough, I go into the office the next day in the governor's office and I said, look, guys, I want to talk a little bit about reverse metering. Oh, I'm so glad you bring this up because fucking power companies are fighting us tooth and nail. They don't want to do reverse metering, but we want to pass a law. So we're telling the legislators to send us a bill so that you can sign it and blah, blah, blah. So this just gives you an example of what impact Jim Cameron had on me with issues that is way beyond, you know, movies and stuff like that. Then he goes and says to me, I said to him, my doctor said to me, he says, I should get off meat. And they should only have once a week meat. And he says, well, hello, where have you been? I mean, I've been vegan for 5 years. So I said, what? And he says, I've been vegan for 5 years. I haven't eaten any meat for 5 years. You don't eat meat to have it, blah, 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 blah. And he goes crazy now, right? And he says, as a matter of fact, we're doing a documentary right now on a thing, on eating plant-based food. So all of a sudden, he's the expert. Now I sit down with him, and he's telling me for hours about plant-based food and how he can combine and create the right amino acids to create the right protein, and obviously how he can get strong. And now he lists the name of the athletes, boxers, wrestlers, weightlifters, UFC fighters, everything that are on plant-based food. Think about that. So now I got into it, and I was part of this documentary, right? And I eat like maybe once a week meat. So I would say 70% at least to cut down my meat intake for health reasons. And it happens to be also for environmental reasons. As he explained, I say, Arnold, what do you think where most of the pollution comes from? More than from transportation comes from breeding livestock. Says, are you kidding me? He says, no, read up on it. He says, I sent you some stuff. So I'm reading up on it. Sure enough, 28% of the pollution comes from breeding livestock. So he says, if people wouldn't eat meat, he says, and wouldn't have the animals being kind of like the wholesale, kind of like the vegetable protein goes into the animal, then they eat it and they chase it, then you eat the animal, you still get the plant-based food, but through the animal now. It's bullshit. We can do better than that.
Yeah.
Let's cut out the meat. It's just amazing how I get exposed to various different things in my life and make me passionate about ways that I couldn't even ever have planned. This kind of relationships and this kind of knowledge, you could never plan it.